Hello friends, this is the fifth lecture of our endocrine series, and today we are going to discuss about the hormone that are secreted by posterior pituitary. This is the third lecture of the pituitary hormones, and in our previous lecture we discussed about the hormone secreted by the anterior pituitary and the growth hormone. Now let's discuss the remaining portion of the pituitary, the posterior pituitary. I show you this diagram in my previous lecture that posterior pituitary is a continuation of the hypothalamus, right? The nuclei that is drawn over here, the paraventricular nuclei and supraoptic nuclei. These two nuclei are the magnocellular neuron. Their neuron go downward, and at the posterior pituitary level their axon reach, and they are basically designed to make hormone and secreted at the posterior pituitary level, right? Now which hormone is going to secreted by supraoptic nuclei and which hormone is going to secreted by paraventricular nuclei? The very briefing I tell you in our earlier lecture. Now let's discuss the hormones in detail. So the supraoptic nuclei, it is basically secreting the ADH. The full form of ADH is antidiuretic hormone. The other name of the ADH is vasopressin. If you become more precise, it is known as arginine vasopressin. Now here's the thing. Previously I mentioned only the vasopressin. In this very slide I mentioned arginine. Now the significance of arginine is that arginine is basically present in most mammals. Most mammals that are secreting the ADH. Now in case of hippopotami and the pigs, this arginine is going to replace by lysine. So in hippopotami and pig, this arginine vasopressin is actually the lysine vasopressin. Now the next nuclei is the paraventricular nuclei. That nuclei is going to secrete the oxytocin. Now same as most of the peptide hormone, this hormone also synthesized as a pre-hormone, the precursor hormone. The precursor hormone of ADH is known as prepropresophysin, and along with ADH, in the granules that is situated over the posterior pituitary, that granules contain other peptide. It is known as neurophysin 2, and the pre-hormone of oxytocin is known as preprophysin, preprooxyphysin. In that oxytocin molecule is along with the neurophysin 1. Now in some of the MCQ they ask which neurophysin will be attached to which person, the which hormone. Now here's the formula to remember. See, in neurophysin 2 there are two, and the hormone that has a two name is the ADH and vasopressin. So neurophysin 2 is basically present with ADH. Now this system, that paraventricular nuclei and supraoptic nuclei, are send their axon downward to the posterior pituitary and make a tract. That tract is known as hypothalamic hypophyseal tract. Let's discuss about that tract, hypothalamo hypophyseal tract. Now here's the thing, fiber pass to neurophysis from the hypothalami and form a series of dilated terminals that is present over here. The axon of these two neurons, supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei, goes downward and make a dilated terminals over here. Inside that dilated terminal there are granules, that inside the granules the hormone oxytocin and the vasopressin is situated, and that dilated portion of nerve terminal is known as hearing bodies. So fiber pass to neurohypophysis and form a series of dilated terminals. That dilated terminals is known as hearing bodies, and it secrete the peptide hormone ADH and oxytocin. Now the chemistry of the ADH and oxytocin. See, both these hormones are secreted by the neurons that is present over the hypothalamus. So both the hormone are neurohormone, and they are the polypeptide hormones. So they are supposed to have an amino acid sequence. Basically both the hormone has the same number of amino acid. That number is 9 amino acid sequence. The only difference is that amino acid at 3 and 8 position are different. In case of ADH, it is basically phenylalanine and arginine, while in case of oxytocin, it is leucine and isoleucine. This is the one of the MCQ that are asked recently. The name of the amino acid and basically the number of amino acid, right? So they both are nanopeptide having 9 amino acid in their molecule. Now let's talk about this one first, ADH, arginine vasopressin one. The receptor that is used by vasopressin are basically 3 types, right? V1, V2, V3. In some books it is written as a V1, V2, and V1 is subdivided into V1A and V1B. If we stick to the standard book, there are 2 receptors. One is V1 and V2, and V1 is divided or subdivided into 2, V1A and V1B, and the last one is V2. Now all the vasopressin receptor are GPCR. You know the full form of GPCR, it is G protein couple receptor. Now as we know that there are lots and lots of G protein couple receptor are there. Which receptor is going to use which system of G protein? So V1A receptor is used GQ system. Via this GQ system, they are basically increase the this secondary messenger IP3 and DAG, and this receptor is present over the blood vessel. So vasopressin via V1A receptor causes vasoconstriction. Now let's talk to the V2 receptor. The V2 receptor is basically used GS system, and what GS system will do, it will increase cyclic AMP level, and via working to this V2 receptor, vasopressin is going to retain the water. It has a water retention capacity. And the last one is V1B receptor or V3 receptor. That receptor is basically designed for brain. So you can easily remember that this B stands for brain. Got it? You have to remember like this. So this V1B receptor is unique to anterior pituitary, and they are basically designed for secretion of ACTH. Got it? Now the effect of ADH. These are the receptor. How this receptor is going to work? The effect of ADH or vasopressin. So in this diagram, this posterior pituitary hormone, this posterior pituitary gland secrete 2 hormone. One is vasopressin, another one is oxytocin, and vasopressin has a 2 pronounced action. One is over kidney, another one is over blood vessel. So via V2 receptor, vasopressin is going to prevent the diuresis. So basically it prevent the water loss, so they conserve the body water. And via V1 receptor, it is going to constrict the vessel, vasoconstriction, and so called vasopressin. So the name vasopressin came from the action of ADH via V1 receptor is going to press the vessel, and this ADH name came from the action via V2. Got it? Now how this ADH will conserve the water? The more prominent action of ADH is to conserve body water and prevent diuresis. So how ADH will conserve water? Let me give you a simple diagram first, so you can easily understand how ADH conserve the water. Starting with the first, the conservation of water will be taking place at the kidney, right? Kidney has a various nephron. Nephron is the functional unit of kidney, right? Now at the level of collecting duct, there are 2 type of cell. One is P cell, principal cell, and I cell, intercalated cell. The ADH is going to work over the principal cell. Let me give you the diagram. See, this is the cell of collecting duct. This one is the principal cell. Now what the ADH will do? ADH will came through the blood vessel over here, bind with the receptor, and what it will do? It will increase the permeability of the apical membrane. Now this might be confusing that the um, this this slide has a two membrane. This one is very near to the urine. This yellow color is the urine, this red one is the blood. So for easy to remember, this lining of this tubular cell that is near to the blood vessel, it is known as basolateral membrane. Clear? Near to the blood it is basolateral, away from blood it is apical. This is the formula to remember the membrane. So this one that is near to the urine is the apical membrane, this one near to the blood is the basolateral membrane. So what ADH is actually do over here, ADH is going to insert this channel, this set of the channel, these are the water channel. Via this water channel, whatever the water is present inside the tubular fluid, it is going to reabsorb into this tubular cell, the P cell, and via this channel it will enter inside the blood, and that's how the water is going to reabsorb from urine or to filtrate inside the body or inside the blood, right? So what ADH will do, once the ADH bind with the tubular cell, it going to increase the number of channel that is present over the apical membrane. So normally in the absence of ADH, this channel are not present at the apical membrane. So how this ADH is going to increase the amount or availability of the channel over apical membrane? Let me give you the detailed figure how this ADH will work. This one, see, this ADH is going to bind with the V2 receptor, and this V2 receptor has a attached G protein. Once this ADH will bind with the V2 receptor, it activate this GS system and activate the AC, means adenylyl cyclase. This entire sequence we already learned in our receptor and signaling lecture number 1. Now what this adenylyl cyclase do, it convert the ATP into cyclic AMP. This cyclic AMP is the second messenger. Now this ADH, this cyclic AMP is going to increase or phosphorylate or activate this enzyme known as protein kinase. This protein kinase, once phosphorylated, it again phosphorylate this vesicle. This is the vesicle, and these dots are the channel that is shown in this diagram. These dots are the water channel. The name of that water channel is aquaporin. Remember the name, aquaporin. So once this protein kinase A activated, this protein kinase A will phosphorylate this aquaporin vesicle, aquaporin containing vesicle, and this aquaporin is going to inserted over this apical membrane, the membrane that is situated away from the blood, like this. And once this ADH is removed, this channel will be incorporated inside the cell via endocytosis by this manner, right? So in the presence of ADH, there is exocytosis of this vesicle will take place, and this all this water channel or aquaporin will be inserted like this. Now once the ADH is removed, this all this water channel will be endocytosed like this and present as a vesicle inside the cell. So this is how this ADH will increase the absorption of the water. Now there are 12 aquaporin, aquaporin 1 to aquaporin 12. There are 12 types of aquaporin is present. Now which aquaporin is present over here? That is the aquaporin 2. See, aquaporin 2 is situated at the apical membrane. Now this water channel is also aquaporin. The number of the aquaporin, if you do not remember it is 2, 3, 4. 2 is present over the apical membrane, 3 and 4 is present over the basolateral. So here is 2 and over here is 3 and 4, right? So aquaporin 2 at the apical membrane and aquaporin 3 and 4 at the basolateral membrane. So where actually the aquaporin 1 is situated, right? You might be wondering. Aquaporin 1 is present over the brain and RBC. And if you guys wondering that there are also aquaporin 0 channel is present. That aquaporin 0 is present over the lenses of the eye. Got it? Now this is all about the understanding. How will you write it down if such thing is asked in exam? So you have to write it like this. ADH bind with the V2 receptor. The V2 receptor is actually the G protein couple receptor, and it activates the adenylyl cyclase and it increases the formation of cyclic AMP. Once this cyclic AMP will be formed, it activates the protein kinase A, and this protein kinase A will phosphorylate the very special vesicle. Now this vesicle contain the aquaporin 2 water channel. This vesicle is inserted into the apical cell membrane and temporarily provide many new pores or channel, and via this thing it will increase the permeability of the water, and water will be reabsorbed from the urine, and urine become concentrated and the blood become diluted. Now this is all about the ADH action. Now how this ADH is secreted? Now here's the thing, ADH regulate the osmolarity, not the volume, but indirectly volume, as the blood volume is increased, as the volume of the water is increased inside the blood, is going to decrease the osmolarity of the blood, and ultimately it's going to secrete the ADH. But ADH is designed to respond only to osmolarity of the blood. So this nerve cell in hypothalamus sense the osmolarity of the blood, and that sensor is known as osmoreceptor. So this osmoreceptor, if the surrounding fluid is hypertonic, then there is a osmosis of the water will take place from the osmoreceptor to the outside. It will lead to shrinking of that osmoreceptor, shrinking of the nerve cell body. Once this shrinking will take place, it will activate the osmoreceptor and ADH will be secreted, and this ADH will perform two actions. One is vasoconstriction via V1 and water reabsorption via V2. Got it? This is all about how ADH is secreted. Now you might be wondering where this osmoreceptor is actually present, right? Where is the osmoreceptor? So let's discuss first what is osmoreceptor. Osmoreceptor is a structure that senses the osmolarity of the blood. So osmoreceptor is present inside the brain, but it has to sense the osmolarity of the blood. And you guys know that blood is surrounded by blood-brain barrier. So if this osmoreceptor is present inside the blood-brain barrier, this osmoreceptor is going to sense the osmolarity of the CSF, but we do not want that. We want to sense the osmolarity of the blood. So this osmoreceptor is supposed to present outside the blood-brain barrier, right? So that's why osmoreceptor is basically present inside the brain, but it is situated outside the blood-brain barrier, right? Now where it is situated outside the brain? It is situated at the anterior wall of the third ventricle, very near to the hypothalamus, and it has a relationship with the hypothalamus. Now it is situated at the anterior wall of the third ventricle. That anterior wall, or if we become more precise, it is known as anteroventral area of third ventricle. The area is known as lamina terminalis. Remember the term, lamina terminalis. Inside this lamina terminalis, there are two structures present. That two structure is known as osmoreceptor. Let me give you the name: subfornical organ and orgasm vasculosum, like this. SFO and OV. Now this OV, in some book it is written as OVLT. OV stands for orgasm vasculosum and LT stands for lamina terminalis. These two are the osmoreceptor. Now this structure will sense the data of the osmolarity of the blood, and both the data will ultimately go to the supraoptic nuclei. They are going to give the report to the supraoptic nuclei, and supraoptic nuclei will decide how much ADS will be needed inside the circulation. Now here's the thing, that this SFO and orgasm vasculosum also get information of blood pressure by baroreceptor and also get information of blood volume by volume sensor. So basically this secretion of ADH that is done by supraoptic nuclei get information of osmolarity plus changes in blood pressure plus changes in the blood volume. But most of the time this supraoptic nuclei will respond to change in the osmolarity of the blood. Now the mechanism of the action that we are already discussed in our previous slides, that ADH is bind with the V2 receptor. V2 receptor is G protein coupled receptor. It will activate the adenylyl cyclase. It will increase the formation of the cyclic AMP. It will activate the protein kinase A. This protein kinase A activation will leads to phosphorylation of the spatial vesicle. That vesicle is inserted inside the cell membrane. This is just a revision of our previous slides, and temporarily provide many new pores, and it will increase the permeability of the water. Alright, now based on this discussion I will give you this revision because there is one comment asked from this mechanism of action of the ADH. You need to remember all the sequence that I already teach you and write it down in a single fashion like this, right? This is nothing but all the things that we discussed in our previous slide. Now let's do the clinical correlation of the ADH. If there is a hyposecretion of the ADH, that condition is known as a diabetes insipidus or diabetes insipidus. In some pronunciation will be like that, diabetes insipidus. If there is a hypersecretion of ADH, that condition has a very tricky name, SIADH, syndrome of inappropriate ADH. It is supposed to like that syndrome of increased ADH, but it is given the name as syndrome of inappropriate ADH. Now what is diabetes insipidus? What happens in diabetes insipidus? There is a large amount of urine output. You see, whenever the ADH is not secreted in required quantity, what will happen? There are no more water channel that will inserted over the apical membrane, so there are water will be lost inside the urine, and it will leads to large amount of urine output. So large amount of urine output, it will leads to increase water loss, and ultimately it will increase the osmolarity of the plasma. And this osmolarity of the plasma, whenever it increase, it activate the third center. Right, now this diabetes insipidus is basically two subtype. One is the central, another one is the nephrogenic. Now what is the difference between central diabetes insipidus and the nephrogenic diabetes insipidus? As the name suggests, the problem is at the central level. ADH is not synthesized or released in appropriate manner. And nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, as the name suggests, the problem is at the nephron level. Action on the kidney is not as it should be. Action on the kidney is affected, and basically that is due to the lack of the receptor. Now what will happen in SIADH, syndrome of inappropriate ADH? In this SIADH, the ADH will be secreted in higher amount, so more amount of water is reabsorbed. It will leads to decrease the osmolarity of the plasma, and blood volume will be increased, right? This is all about the ADH. Now the second hormone that we are going to discuss today, it is the oxytocin. Now let me show you the diagram that I showed you in earlier, that posterior pituitary will be secreted two hormone, vasopressin and oxytocin. Both the hormone has two different type of action. This vasopressin has a action over nephron and over the blood vessel, and oxytocin has a action on uterus and over the mammary gland. Now what is the action over the uterus? Now during the delivery it will stimulate the uterine contraction, and during the breastfeeding this oxytocin will stimulate the milk ejection, that is known as a milk ejection reflex. This is all about the use of oxytocin in female. Now what is the use of oxytocin in male? Right, this oxytocin is basically contract the vas deferens at the time of the ejaculation. Now milk ejection reflex. Now what happens in milk ejection reflex? there is a summary that is given in this diagram. You see, when the baby starts suckling, somehow the impulse goes to the brain. Inside the brain, pituitary gland will secrete the oxytocin, and somehow this oxytocin will increase this milk let down. The prolactin is responsible for milk production. P stands for pre. Prolactin for production. Oxytocin is for this milk let down. Now let me give you the detailed diagram. You can easily understand how the milk ejection reflex will work. See, in this diagram, baby is just about to start the suckling of the nipple, and the tactile receptor that is present over this nipple that goes to the brain, to the hypothalamus via the ascending tract, and this hypothalamus give a signal to the supraoptic nuclei and paraventricular nuclei, and this nuclei will secrete the oxytocin. This oxytocin via blood reach to the breast, and you see there are muscular layer that is surround this alveoli, right? It is a myoepithelial layer. This myoepithelial layer will contract and milk will be ejected. That is known as milk let down, right? Now I mentioned two hormone over here in case of oxytocin, that supraoptic nuclei and the paraventricular nuclei. As I told you in my previous lecture, that as far as this oxytocin is concerned, it is basically secreted by paraventricular nuclei, but 20% it also secreted from supraoptic nuclei. If you remember that thing, you might be able to give answer in that manner. Now, how will you write it down in exam? Milk ejection reflex. So basically, via nerve signal, the hormone will be secreted. So this reflex, this entire reflex is the neuroendocrine reflex. The reflex will be start at a nerve signal and end via secretion of the hormone, right? So it is a neuroendocrine reflex. What happens in this neuroendocrine reflex? Suckling of a breast by infant, it will stimulate the touch receptor that is present around the nipple. Signal transmitted to the hypothalamus, to the two nuclei, supraoptic and paraventricular. They are going to release the oxytocin, and this oxytocin via blood carried to the breast. And inside the breast, there is a contraction of the myoepithelial cell that surround the alveoli of the breast. This contraction of the alveoli will leads to flow of milk or milk let down, and milk begins to flow. Now this slide is actually asked in comment in Feb 2006. It will be like this: suckling of breast causes the milk ejection, or sucking of the milk, so sucking causes milk ejection. What will you write it down in such comment? Same thing that we write it down in our previous slide. Suckling stimulate the nipple of the breast, signal transmitted to the neurons in the hypothalamus, release of the oxytocin. Oxytocin will be carried by blood to the breast, contraction of the myoepithelial cell that surround the alveoli, and milk begins to flow. Now the last thing, what is the role of oxytocin on the labor or in childbirth? Let me give you a diagram. You can easily incorporate the role of oxytocin in this diagram. See, this is the uterus. Inside the uterus there is a baby situated over here. It is the vagina. This portion is the cervix. So first thing first, whenever the head of the baby or head of the fetus push down against the cervix, it will initiate the nerve signal. That nerve signal will be transmitted to the brain, and the brain, it stimulates the production of the oxytocin. Now is that oxytocin carried via blood to the uterus, and this oxytocin will stimulate the uterine muscle to get contracted, and it push the fetus downward. Again, the head of the fetus, when it push against the cervix, the nerve signal will be generated. Again, entire cycle will be repeated. This cycle will become stronger and stronger, and that cycle is known as positive feedback cycle. Got it? That positive feedback cycle is known as Ferguson reflex, that is given in your book. So oxytocin start a positive feedback cycle on uterine contraction. Now this is all about our today's lecture. Now there are certain facts that you need to remember. It is given in our recent edition of the Ganon. The sensitivity of the uterine musculature to the oxytocin. Now see, the uterine musculature is not sensitive in the same fashion in non-pregnant lady and to the pregnant lady. The sensitivity of the uterine musculature to the oxytocin will be changed periodically. So in pregnancy, when there is a more amount of estrogen, that sensitivity of the uterine musculature to the oxytocin is increased by estrogen and it will be decreased by the progesterone. So in late pregnancy, uterus become very sensitive to oxytocin because of there are higher amount of estrogen. Now due to that, there are marked increase in the receptor of the oxytocin, not the actual oxytocin. So at the late pregnancy, uterus become more sensitive to the oxytocin due to marked increase in the number of oxytocin receptor. So basically amount does not change at the time of the labor, at the time of the childbirth. Amount of the oxytocin inside the plasma remain normal at the onset of the labor. What is actually changed? There is upregulation of the receptor, right? Upregulation of oxytocin receptor. There are increase in the number of the receptor. But due to increase in the oxytocin receptor at this time, it allows normal oxytocin level to initiate that contraction and setting up a positive feedback cycle. Right, this is all about the today's lecture. Thank you. Next time when we meet, we are discussing about the thyroid hormone. Okay, goodbye.